What is the best index fund? Should 24-year-old Collin be investing in semiconductors? And can you hack the lottery by buying all the tickets? You're going to find out right now.
Money, get to the bag.
Welcome back to the Personal Finance Club show. Hey, Jen.
What's up, Jeremy?
So I just got lunch on the way to do this recording. And in San Diego, Pacific Beach, near where I live, where the office is, a new Jimmy John's opened up. And Jimmy John's holds a special place in my heart. Not sponsored, by the way, but nothing is sponsored. I don't know why I keep needing to give that caveat. Yeah, I know. It's like we're just swimming in sponsors over here. But yeah, in college, probably like 50% of the calories I consumed were from Jimmy John's. It was just like cheap subs, fast. You like run in, you run out. I'm on my bike riding to campus. You like 2 minutes and you can get a sub. And there's like $5. And then like with chips and a pickle, it was like $7 or something like that. And so I did this on the way into the office because there's a new Jimmy John's that just opened up. I went to school in Michigan. I'm in Southern California now. Like Jimmy John's over the past 20 years has finally like made its way across the coast. And I was like looking forward to some like nostalgic Jimmy John's subs, like my old college days. So I like knew the menu, I knew how to order. I like ordered the sub and I went to pay, and things were a little different. First, it asked me it's going to ask you a question. I was like, I know what question it's going to ask. You don't need to be all coy about it. You're going to ask for a tip, and that didn't used to happen. You used to just pay. And then I was like expecting to be like $7 because I just was like living in this nostalgic memory of these $7 combo meals from college. And then the price came up and it was like $18.50, and I was like, oh. It like shocked me back to 2025 Southern California. I'm like, ooh, yeah, tip. And so I literally, for the first time, I looked at the menu price. I was like, oh, it's like $12. What used to be $5 is $12. And like the pickle, which used to be, I think, just free, is $2. And the chips are $3 plus a tip or whatever it is. Pretty wild, different times than college. I'm also getting old. So
No, you never.
Never. I know, as my Gandalf gray beard is glinting against the camera. So that showed me a little bit of the passage of time. So I want to ask, do you have an early money memory, or do you remember your earliest money memory?
For sure. I'd say my first money memory was my brother had a paper route when I was born in Massachusetts. I was there till I was 8. And we lived in apartments, and my brother had a paper route where he got like, I'm sure it was less than $1 to like probably give papers to 2 floors. And I think he gave me like at least 15 cents of that dollar.
Really?
So
You're like his agent?
I don't know if that's like indicative of my personality. I mean, I have a great older brother, and he's always sharing with me. So it was one of those situations where like he got a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles bike. I had to get one. Like I had to get gifts on his birthday. So my first money memory is my brother sharing his salary with me. And I gave papers to like 2 doors. So I don't think the math works out. But
that's nice.
He was very sweet. So that's probably my earliest money memory.
Did you find that to be a lot of money? Like, what was your like feeling about it at the time?
I mean, I was probably 7, so I don't have a lot of feelings about it, but I think I just wanted to be included. Really, just like it was less about the money and more about the inclusion of it all. And if he's making money, I'm making money. You know what I mean? Like I don't remember this, but my mom said when he went to school, he was learning to read, and he would bring books home, and I'd be like, he's not going to learn how to read without me. So it was more like the inclusion of it. So I would start to read before I went to school. So I don't know if I had feelings specifically about money, but I was happy to be included.
Sounds like you're his agent. You get 15% for not doing much work.
I think I was more of a bully than an agent, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's organized crime. It'd be a terrible thing if something happened to your paper route.
It was mafia vibes for sure.
Give Jen 15 cents. I distinctly remember being like young, probably 5, 6, like an age where my parents put me to bed and I didn't want to go to bed. And I would sometimes like sneak out of my bedroom because I wasn't tired. And we had stairs in our house, and I'd be at the top of the stairs, like listening down to the kitchen below. And I remember my parents would always talk about 401ks. They're like, oh, the 401k this, the 401k that, which at the time sounded like Chinese to me. I was like, what the heck is this thing? And my memory of the time, my feeling was, if I ever talk about 401ks, then that means I'm super old. was like, what an old person thing to talk about. What a boring old person thing to talk about. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't know what it is. And honestly, I feel like a lot of adults probably still feel that way. But now, fast forward to me being an old person, and I literally talk about 401ks like every single day of my life. So I don't know, maybe that was like I willed it into existence or jinxed it into existence or something, because now I talk about this boring topic, money, but we try to make it fun on the Personal
That's
Finance Club show.
Your first money memory being 401ks and mine being like pennies. That's wild.
I think yours is probably more typical. My memory was like not even understanding it, but yeah, definitely a weird memory.
Okay, well, we have a special guest star for our first segment today, don't we?
Yes. What is our first segment?
It is Explain It Like I'm 5.
This is so great. There's all these complex topics. And yes, we have a special guest star. So what are we talking about today?
Okay, so let's go all the way back to the basics and building blocks of Personal Finance Club to a question I have a feeling you get quite a lot.
What is the best indexed fund?
What is the best index fund? And can you explain the answer like I'm 5 or maybe even like I'm 4?
So that adorable voice you just heard was my son, Mateo, who is 4. I made him repeat after me to get him to say it because he does not know what an index fund is. But I have heard some feedback that the Explain Like I'm 5 section is still too complicated. So I'm going to try to really keep it simple. And so to understand what an index fund is, you have to understand what a stock is. A stock is buying a piece of a company. And so imagine if you go and buy a bottle of Coke. There's a Coke company that, produces it, ships it, bottles it, markets it. They make Coke. And they're owners of the Coke company. Not one person doesn't own the entire company. It's owned by lots of people, and it's tracked by shares in the company. And so you can buy a share of Coke. And you can basically buy a share of basically any company you've heard of. Any of these big companies are generally called publicly traded companies, which means you can buy them as a member of the public. And so you could buy Coke, you could buy Nike, you could buy Home Depot. All these stores you see, you can buy shares of the company. And so it begs this question, which shares do you buy? Which companies do you buy? And I'm going to spare you the entire reasoning, but the best answer, in my opinion, is to buy all of the companies. Instead of picking and choosing and guessing the companies, you buy all of them in what's called an index fund. An index fund is basically like a big basket. So if you were going to go to the grocery store and imagine that every item on the shelf, instead of being the item, it's a share of the company that makes the item. So instead of buying Coke, you could buy a share of Coke. Instead of buying Campbell's soup, you buy a share of Campbell's soup, etc. You can put everything in the entire grocery store into your one basket. That's an index fund. It's buying all of the companies that make all the products and services of the world. When you buy an index fund, you're basically guaranteeing yourself your fair share of all the market growth, of the growth of all these companies. And so the question that, when I give that short pitch about what is an index fund, I often get a question like Mateo asks, which is, okay, so what's the best index fund? And the way I like to picture it is like, let's say you go back to the grocery store and you buy your Coke, you buy your Campbell's soup, you buy Kraft mac and cheese. That question's kind of like saying, what's the best grocery store from which to buy these items? And the answer is, it doesn't really matter. Everyone's going to have Coke. Everyone's going to have Campbell's. Everyone's going to have Kraft's. And so it doesn't matter which brand, if whether you go to a Safeway or a Kroger or an Albertsons or a Vaughn's. I don't know if these grocery stores make sense to you because depending on where you live in the country, they all have different names, but they're all kind of owned by the same people, I think.
I didn't know you would know Kroger. That's East Coast.
Kroger is Michigan. That was my OG Michigan grocery store. Yeah.
Kroger's Ralph's out here. I see sometimes the labels. Anyway, go ahead.
And a little fun fact, you can take your Kroger card and you can use it at like Safeway, at Ralph's. I think even at Vaughn's, it's like the same company has just rebranded all these different grocery stores. Don't quote me on the exact, but or you can I just type in a phone number and you can type in Jenny's phone number, 8675309. And then
are you calling me Jenny now? Hold up. Okay, got you.
Jenny. Oh,
I got you, Jenny. Yeah.
See, that's a music reference, Jen. That's my first and last music reference on the show.
How do you?
A one-hit wonder from 1984. That's how current I am.
Amazing.
So anyway, to answer the question, what's the best index fund? The answer is it doesn't matter. If you go to any of these different grocery stores, you're gonna get all the same groceries. And in fact, I'll show a chart on the screen right here. I took the 10 or so most popular index funds in the US, and they're pretty different from each other. So in this list is VOO, ITOT, VTI, VTSAX, IVV, VFINX. Like, you might recognize some of those ticker symbols, you might not, but they differ a lot because some of them track 500 companies, some of them track 3,000 companies, some of them are ETFs, some of them are mutual funds. And this is kind of the confusing landscape, which leads to this question, what's the best one? And when you chart them all on top of each other, Jen, can you tell me what that looks like? Are you looking at the chart right now?
They're on top of each other.
It looks like a single line. Yeah, they're all on top of each other. If you like squint, you can kind of see some differences like over, the course of 10 years, which might just have to do with like the fees that they charge, or maybe if they're, slightly bigger or smaller companies, but because they track a bigger or smaller index. But basically, any index fund that's tracking the US stock market is going to perform about the same. And so when choosing the best one, it's not really about one's going to perform better than another. It's just picking one that trades free with your brokerage. So you wouldn't want to buy a Vanguard mutual fund in a Fidelity account because you'll get hit with a transactional fee. So you want to trade free, no transaction fees. In the US, all ETFs trade free with all brokerages. A little bit confusing. We'll jump into ETFs versus mutual funds on another episode. But yeah, make sure it trades free with your brokerage, and just make sure it's a broad market, low fee index fund. You can look up the expense ratio associated with it, and it should be around 0.2% or lower. Anything below 0.2%, I would say, is in the good range. And a lot of these are like 0.03%. It doesn't really matter when you're that low. If it's 0.03 or 0.05, that's not going to make much of a difference in your life. And that's it. So no best index fund, just buy one that is the broad market and stick with it for the long term. So I don't know. It's really hard to explain these like I'm 5.
Well, my
maybe
question
Mateo's
to you
voice
is,
inspired us.
how much of that do you think Mateo would understand?
None. But he's
None.
4.
He's 4. In your defense, he's 4. Okay.
He
Well, we'll
can
keep
count
trying.
he can count to, at least to 20, and then from there on, it kind of gets a little bit chaotic, but there's a lot of right numbers in there. But yeah, you kind of got to have counting down before you can get to index funds, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, well, I'm proud of you for trying. We'll keep simplifying as much as we can, or you will, honestly.
He might have understood the grocery store thing, that, putting in groceries in baskets. That's kind of like good for a 5-year-old. Buy all the groceries.
Okay, we'll ask him what he thinks. Okay, let's get into our next segment.
Money, money.
Can I ask a dumb one?
Is it a dumb question, or are you asking a dumb person? We're about to find out.
Okay, now, before we even get into this, actually, what I need to say is that y'all's questions are too long. We're so happy that you're in the inbox, but y'all's questions are too long. So we're editing. We're so grateful that you're popping in there, but we are editing them down. Not everything's included, but try and keep it to something that you'd want to hear on a podcast. And thank you, Collin, for your questions. So Collin asks, my name is Collin and I'm 24. I started investing last December and want to be set up for long-term investing, but got way more interested in it than I thought I would. So I always enjoy trying to buy low on big companies for fast growth. Right now, my plan is to keep around 65% in FZROX and pair it with other funds for short term like FSELX for semiconductors and FSENX for energy. I would also like a core of a few big companies such as Amazon, Apple, Tesla, and Disney currently. And then I have another handful of positions with less invested like Starbucks, Lulu, and Celsius. I keep having the same issue where I want to redistribute my money into either other companies when their price falls or more into my funds and feel like I have too many positions, 15 total. What do you think of my choice of funds? Are there any funds you'd recommend for holding long term? And how can I balance the long term growth with some of the fun money since I'm young and can afford it at this time without having too many positions? So that was us editing the question.
That was about half the length of the original question. And even as you're reading, I was like, oh, we should have cut it more. But here we are. All right, Collin, this is my pep talk to 24-year-olds. And, broad strokes, by the way, you're doing great. You're very young. You're buying very wise things, index funds and stocks. You plan to invest for the long term. Grade on the A to F scale, I'd give you maybe a B plus or A minus right now. You're doing very well. And that's the most important message here. The second most important message is the fine-tuning message. And to describe kind of your strategy, I like to think of all of the stocks like a big pie chart. So remember in the previous segment, we talked about the groceries. Imagine every single brand in a big pie chart. And so right now, one of the biggest companies on earth is Apple, Nvidia's up there, Microsoft. Those are like the biggest pie slices. And then as you get smaller and smaller, the pie slices get smaller and smaller. You can buy the entire pie. And first, let's talk just about US stocks because that's often how these funds are organized. But the US stock market has this pie chart, right? It has the entire pie. When you buy FZROX, that is the entire pie. Everything else you've listed is just slicing the pie in different ways. Like you could take a slice from the middle, a slice across you could take individual pieces, like an individual slice is like the companies. You could just make big cuts down the middle, up and down, circles, squares. And so you've bought the entire pie. And then in my kind of a little bit dismissive opinion, you're arbitrarily just cutting through the pie and buying more of the same pie in different amounts and different quantities. And so by your entire strategy, you're not becoming more diversified. You're just overweighting certain stocks or certain sectors. So certain stocks like Starbucks, Lulu, and Celsius, or certain sectors like semiconductors and energy. But all of those slices are pieces of the pie you already own. And this is just some dude yapping gums on a podcast, but you can look at study after study after study after study that shows experts who pick and choose different ways to cut the pie over time consistently lose to the entire pie. It's cool what you're doing. You're 24, you're learning about this stuff. It's interesting. You want to buy low, fast growth. That's exciting. But the very humble, wise, experienced, tough pill to swallow is that your strategy is very, very unlikely to beat FZROX in the long term. You'll have some that beat it. I promise you that. If you buy 15 different positions, some will be above, some will be below. But net of a very careful accounting of all your gains and losses and all the fees associated with trading, bid-ask spreads, cash drag, all this stuff that can actually slow your growth down, your one index fund will outperform. And so that said, what do? What I like to do is with 90% of my portfolio, I would buy a single index fund. With 10%, go nuts. And in the 10%, I can't tell you what to do. I don't know if Disney or Apple or Tesla or Amazon are going to do better than semiconductors or energy. If I knew the answers to those questions, I'm like, kind of rich. I'm like poor rich, but I would be like rich. I'd be like billionaire rich, super yacht rich, because anyone who knows the future and can predictively tell you which sectors, which stocks are going to do better, they could trade that information and become a billionaire in a relatively short period of time. And the fact that people who are talking about this generally aren't billionaires is kind of like the dirty little secret of Wall Street, which is nobody knows what the future holds because the market's very efficient. And so for you, Collin, I'd say, hey, take it for what it is. This is just some dude that's got 20 years on you yapping his gums, but what you're attempting is very, very difficult. And you're actually going to end up with less money for having done it. And it's a lot more work. If you want to, that's cool with your 10%. Like I said, go nuts. But 90%. That said, everything we've talked about thus far is a U.S. stock. I assume you live in the U.S. because you're only buying U.S. stocks. But as you may know, there are other countries on planet Earth, such as China, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Australia, Brazil, just to name a few. But these countries have companies too, and often they're really great companies. And your portfolio is like the perfect encapsulation of a 24-year-old's portfolio who only has a certain living memory of the stock market. And your living memory of the stock market, maybe it came online when you're 14 or something, and it's been 10 years, has exclusively existed during U.S. outperformance. And so I would accuse you, Collin, of what's called chasing past performance. By buying semiconductors, Amazon, Apple, Tesla, Disney, you are buying what did well the last 10 years. But what did well the last 10 years is very different from what's going to do well the next 10 years. And almost always, those two things are not the same. If you look at like the winners of any decade, they're rarely the same 2 decades in a row. And so when you chase past performance, you go over buy, you buy more slices of the pie that have done well the last 10 years. You're just asking to underperform the next 10 years. What you should really be doing is buying stocks no one's talking about, that no one's heard of, that didn't do well recently, that are about to do well, but nobody knows what those are. And it's not as fun as just buying NVIDIA because it has crushed the last 10 years, right? And it also performs to the global markets. So with the US market, it has outperformed non-US stocks over the last 10 years. But if you go back longer, 50, 60, 70 years, it's more like a pendulum. A decade, the US outperforms, a decade, the rest of the world outperforms. And as weighted by the size of the economies or the size of the market cap of the value of the stocks, it's about 50-50. About half is in the US or half is in North America and half is the rest of the world. And so when you are not buying that half of the pie and your entire slices is in like one half of the global pie, you're missing out on what might be the best performing stocks of the next 10 years. And so, yeah, my general advice is keep it simpler. I agree 15 is too many, but for your 90% of your portfolio, go buy, probably 2 index funds. FZROX is fine, but you could also buy the international like VXUS, which is a non-US ETF, which trades free in all brokerages. And then with your 10%, go nuts. And I can't tell you to do there because I don't know.
Love it. What I love is that Mateo and Collin had the same question, and Collin's got 20 years on Mateo. And Mateo was unprompted. He just asked that at breakfast this morning, right?
Yeah. He said, where's baby Teddy and what's the best index fund? These are the 2 pressing issues in my life right now.
That's what's on his mind.
Yes.
Amazing. All right, cool. Let's move on to our next segment. Scroll Patrol.
Scroll Patrol.
All right, this is a kind of fun one. Why don't you go ahead and click on that and let me know what you think.
So as always, I've never seen these before, this exact moment. This is like an actual legitimate reaction and commentary I make on it. So it's always a little bit terrifying because I don't know what I'm going to see. And so let's see it.
So me and my friend Moochie got some money and went around to a few different stores because we heard about this thing called the stonk market. The plan is to purchase $251 scratcher tickets to see if we can become rich and successful.
They don't need luck. They bought out the whole thing.
How'd you tell it was $1?
It says $1.
We have made it to our final destination. How much money do we have left?
$69.
Nice. That's what I'm talking about.
How many $1 scratchers can you buy with $69? 69?
The mission has been complete. We got all the scratchers and we're going to take them back to the house. So let's do it.
Let's get to scratching.
$192.
Damn. We made a bad investment today.
We made a bad investment.
You win some, you lose some.
Whew. Okay. First of all, love those 2 guys. Very fun, high energy content
Do you know
creation.
them?
No, never seen them before. I already love them. Don't know who they are. I'm just saying.
I love the
them.
editing.
Love it for them. Yeah, and as a internet video, it's very good.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting, and I think it actually paints a very good mathematical lesson. And so basically, what they're saying is, hey, we're going to take our $250, go buy 250 lottery tickets, and then come on, we gotta hit one, right? And they end up with what was it, $190 or $160 or something?
192 or something like that.
192.
Maybe?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so people good at math don't buy the lotto. Don't play the lotto or at least don't expect to win the lotto. If you want to play for entertainment purposes, because it's kind of fun to dream for a moment while you're scratching off your ticket, go for it. Although the dollar scratchers, I don't think there's like a $1 billion jackpot. I think you could probably win 50 or $100 or something, the biggest jackpot. But yeah, the lottery is a money-making endeavor for the state or local governments that run it. And the way that they make money is for every dollar that they take in, they only pay out less than $1. It might be like 40 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents. And they do that because they print all the tickets. So if they print, a million tickets that they're going to sell for $1 million, the sum total of winnings on all those tickets is less than $1 million, maybe 750,000. And then they make $250,000 in profit. And it's like this poor man's game that if you buy individual tickets, you're going to win because over time you're not. And in fact, what they did is almost the worst thing you can do, which is they bought so many tickets, they're kind of guaranteeing themselves the average return, right? And there have been a few very rare exceptions in history. I think they've made like a Netflix movie about someone that found out that like one state lottery kind of did the math wrong, and there's certain times where the odds favored the buyers, and so they'd go and buy, tens of thousands of dollars of tickets every time that the lottery entered the state. There are also times where there's like the Mega Millions jackpots where it actually becomes kind of mathematically correct to buy tickets, where your expected value for buying a ticket, expected value is basically if you put a dollar in, how many cents you expect to get back. And usually it's well under $1, but sometimes it's over $1. But even that, for those huge jackpots, if you split the jackpot, then it goes back below. And so there's really no guarantee. But yeah, I'd say for content creation, I'd give them an A. And this is my new thing, for Scroll Patrol, I'm going to give a letter grade A through F based on how
breaking news.
Yeah, how good of an idea is this? Like A+ is like 100% PFC endorse. This is a great way to build wealth. And an F is like, don't do this. And I would give this probably, I think I have to give it an F. I was going to maybe say it's a D- because it's fun. And that's true. I think it could be fun, but fun isn't how you build wealth. If you want to have fun, you can go to the movies. And I would say going to the movies also as an F for building wealth. It might be an A for how you want to spend your money. And that's true for lottery too, but this is not a good way to build wealth. Don't play lotto. And it's really sad because the lotto, if you look at lotto players, it's not even middle class or upper middle class or wealthy people playing the lotto. It's basically poor people. It's broke people who are struggling to make rent. And they think this is their ticket out of there. And if you add up all the money they spent on lotto over the years, and if they had put it in an index fund, they could be, wealthy, like 100,000, million, whatever it is. But instead they're just living in this like cycle of continued poverty. So yeah, I give it an F, but I think it's a cute video.
Okay. Have you ever bought a lottery ticket?
Yes. I think my lifetime spending on lotto is maybe under $50, probably under 30 if I'm trying to be more accurate. But every once in a while when there's like $1 billion jackpot, I'll go buy like $1-$2 ticket and, bring it home. And, there used to be this website. I don't know if it still exists, but you could like basically fill out your ticket, or choose your Mega Millions numbers or have it be random or whatever. And then as fast as JavaScript, so it was like running on your computer, but as fast as your computer could run the lotto, it would start doing simulations as though you were buying this ticket every single week. And you'd just like be zooming through time, like hundreds and thousands and tens of and millions of years would pass by, and it would show you your like cumulative winnings. And you could just let that thing run overnight as fast as your computer could possibly choose numbers, and you still wouldn't win. It's like, it's crazy, and so just having one ticket one time or even 1,000 tickets one time, the math is so mind-bogglingly bad. It's really, really hard to comprehend how unlikely you are to win. And humans are just really bad at conceptualizing big numbers. And so we are really good at stories and relative things. And so we see one person win and they have relatively a lot more money than me. And you think someone's got to win. And so, the chance is non-zero, and non-zero starts to sound like 1 or 1% or something like that. But I'm like, no, it's not 1%. It's 0.00000, whatever percent. And you can just, as fast as your computer can run simulations, you'll still never find the right number. That's how bad it is.
So maybe we need to go back to giving it a D- because it shows how bad of an idea it is to buy a lottery ticket with feelings and emotions.
But F is worse than D-. I think it's an F. Don't buy a lot. Do it for fun if you want to.
But like the video, the content itself is like doing a good job of showing us what we shouldn't do.
Okay, I guess that's true. Although
I guess it depends on how you look at it.
That's true. Yeah, I guess I'd say their idea to build wealth, F. But I'd say I'd say the video, I'd give it an A. Maybe a B for education, but not bad.
Okay, cool. All right, let's move on to our last segment of the episode.
Money.
Jeremy had time today. Today's comment was posted on your recent Instagram post about term life insurance versus whole life insurance. And one commenter said, This chart doesn't account for withdrawals in retirement or any market volatility, apparently. Crying laughing emoji. Let's let's say that's the case, though. Now, in life insurance defense, if this is truly the case, you would have a massive taxable event at the time of death and donate half your money to the government for fun. Life insurance pays out tax-free to your beneficiaries. That's why you buy a permanent life insurance policy, LOL. Faulty reasoning.
Oh, this commenter, he's laughing. He's laughing. He says LOL, and he's got a laughing emoji. Good for him. So just for some context, this comment was on a post comparing term life versus whole life. And term life insurance is life insurance that expires after, say, 20-year term, 30-year term, something like that. And whole life insurance is something that doesn't expire, where the death benefit pays out no matter when you die, even in old age, assuming you don't miss a payment and the policy doesn't lapse. And, we've talked about it before, we'll talk about it again, the complexities of life insurance are potentially infinite, but one critique that insurance salesmen throw out there is they say, hey, 98% of term insurance never pays out. Why would you throw your money away on that? Why don't you buy whole life insurance? And the answer is because whole life insurance is so much more expensive that if you buy the cheaper thing and invest the difference, you buy term, invest the difference, you'll be strictly better off no matter when you die. If you die during the term, you get the whole payout plus all of your investments. And then by the term ends, your investments have grown so much that your payout will be more than the death benefit of the whole life insurance. Or when I say your payout, but your wealth accumulated. And this commenter who I forget if I looked him up, but I can virtually guarantee, I would literally put money on it, that he's an insurance salesman, because this is what insurance salesmen do. They basically post this like scare tactic misinformation to back up their worldview that people should all be buying life insurance as an investment. But he makes a few points, and I'm going to break him down. Right now he says, this doesn't account for withdrawals in retirement. I'm like, okay, first of all, that's nonsense, because neither of them account for withdrawals in retirement. You're not withdrawing from the whole life. You're not withdrawing from the term. This is talking about the death benefit, what the beneficiaries get. And they always talk about whole life or permanent life insurance or cash out life insurance as some great retirement plan, but it's not. So, but again, this chart isn't showing that. The second thing he says is this doesn't account for market volatility, which is actually true. So the line in this, if you're looking at it, you can see, but if you're just listening to it, I basically draw a line of how your investments will grow, and it's a smooth line going up exponentially. And that's not how real investments grow. Real investments would be bumpier, but it grows at about that rate historically. And that's the trade-off of investing versus a safer place to put money, like a savings account, right? And so if you had a savings account, there would be no bumpiness. But with investing, you get a higher projected return, 10% in this example, but you accept some volatility. At the end of the day, if you die at 70, where this chart ends, which is young, it could have gone longer, but if you die later, the numbers get even crazier. But let's say you die at 70, with the investing option, you end up with about $2.4 million, whereas the whole life policy is only $500,000. And so you end up with about 5 times more money investing the money rather than just depending on the insurance company payout. And so even accounting for volatility, there's never been a period of 40 years where you're down 80%. That doesn't exist. And so even the volatility, that doesn't make sense for him. Those were his 2 best points. Then the points get really bad. So he said, if this is truly the case, you would have a massive taxable event at the time of your death and donate half of your money to the government for fun. LOL, crying emoji face. And so he's saying, hey, if I go and buy an index fund in a brokerage account and rack up 2.5 million, and then I die, you're going to have a massive taxable event, number one, and you're going to donate half your money to the government. So first of all, I want to talk about the estate tax. And Jen, and I don't think you know the answer to this. This is the trivia question I give everyone. When you die, and maybe you have heard this, and if you have, then you're going to get it pretty close. But when you die, there's an estate tax. And the government taxes your state. Your state's all the stuff you own, your investments, your house, your cars, yada, yada, yada. All the stuff you own is your estate. And if your estate is worth over a certain dollar amount, the estate tax kicks in. Under that dollar amount, which is the lifetime exemption, you owe $0 in estate tax. So my question to you is, what do you think the lifetime exemption is? Like, how much money can you give to your beneficiaries, to your heirs, to your children with 0 tax before paying the estate tax?
Now, I did take both of your courses, and this is in there.
Oh.
So I don't remember the number, but I know that it's super high, something that most people will not achieve. And I know it's millions. I feel like it's like $12 million.
That's a really good guess, and I think that's actually exactly right as of like 2 years ago. But probably when you took the course, but it goes up every year. And as of today in 2025, the lifetime exemption for the estate tax is $13.99 million, and that's for a single person. If you're married, it actually doubles to $27.98 million. So that means if you're a married couple, you can literally you can bequeath to your heirs $28 million and pay zero in estate tax. So this insurance salesman like scare tactic that you're going to donate half of your money to the government. The estate tax isn't half, by the way, either, but you're going to donate half your money to your government because you have $2 million in an investment is just straight up 100% fiction, lie, scare tactic, falsehood, right? Then the other thing he said is you would have a massive taxable event. And so I think what he's saying is, I mean, there's, that's partially, I don't know if he's talking about the estate tax or the capital gains tax. Like, let's say you invest, your investments grow to $2.4 million, but because of that huge amount of growth, probably 80 to 90% of it's growth and only 10% to 10 to 20% is principal. So let's say you invested $300,000 over the course of 40 years. It's grown to $2.8 million. If you, as an alive person, sell it all on one single day and realize all that gain, you would owe capital gains on that like $2.1 million of gains, right? So most of the money you have to pay capital gains tax, which, by the way, caps out at 20%. For most people, it's 15%. So it's not half, it's 15%, which means your $2.4 million become like $2.2 million. Not a crippling, not half, not a crippling thing. Obviously, way more than the $500,000 that life insurance would pay out, but still a tax. But here's what happens if you die. If you die, your beneficiaries enjoy a step up in basis. What that means is if you have invested $300,000 and it grows to $2.4 million, when your beneficiaries, when your children, when your heirs get that investment, their basis, what they paid, goes from $300,000 to $2.4 million, which means the day after you die, they could go to Fidelity, click sell $2.4 million of your ETF in a taxable brokerage account and pay zero in tax. So this insurance salesman commenting who said you'd have a massive taxable event, he obviously didn't specify, but I assume he either meant from the capital gains and or the estate tax. Both are 100% false. In the U.S. tax code, your kids will pay zero on this $2.4 million investment that they're inheriting. So your net tax would literally be zero. And so this comment kind of encapsulates why the insurance salesmen make my blood boil, because they go and use these crazy sales tactics using the complexity of the U.S. tax system, weaponizing it against young people who are making, investment choices, selling their products as investments, which is illegal and they shouldn't do, instead pushing their whole life insurance. Not a fan. I think this commenter is very bad. If I was to give this commenter grade, F-, not a good comment in my opinion.
Wow.
Is there F minuses? It's a fail. It's a fail, man.
I personally never seen an F in my life. So, wow, that's the toughest you've gone on our Jeremy Had Time today. I pity the fool.
That was a bad comment. That was a bad one.
Yeah, okay, you really went off. Love that. More of that. If you have any scroll patrols, maybe not Jeremy Had Time today, because that probably means they're commenting negative things on your post, but send them our way at podcast@personalfinanceclub.com. That is all that we have time for on today's show. We thank you for listening and hope to see you again next week.
And don't forget to follow the 2 rules of Personal Finance Club. Rule number 1 is to live below your means, and rule number 2 is invest early and often.
The Personal Finance Club show is produced by Jeremy Schneider and Jen Mundia. Music by Esabalu and Homie. Send your questions to podcast@personalfinanceclub.com. The Personal Finance Club show is co-hosted by Jeremy Schneider, who is a co-owner of Nectarine, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The views expressed on this show are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Nectarine. Please refer to hellonectarine.com for all relevant disclosures. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as personalized investment advice or a solicitation to buy or sell any security. Listeners should consult their own financial, legal, or tax professionals for advice specific to their situation.